Well, I'm back. Let's begin 2018 by looking at one of 2017's biggest blunders. Yes, I'm talking about Destiny 2 yet again, but not in the way you would think. Sure, since I released Rough Road Continues, Bungie has begun to turn Destiny 2 around, but until those changes come to fruition, I see no point talking about them, since I plan to make a Rough Road follow-up anyway once Gods of Mars and the inevitable September expansion release later this year. I've made it clear in the past that I love the characters and lore of Destiny, but find how the games deal with it suspect, may it be not having enough time to explore the themes or locking details behind guns and trading cards. So when it came time to write the second Rough Road script, I did have a few ideas for an alternate take on the game's story. Sadly, due to me wanting to get the video finished before Curse of Osiris, I threw that section out to lighten the workload. Now, however, seems like the best time to go over these concepts, since I actually do want to take a break from Destiny for a while, and by the time the aforementioned expansions come out, no one will give a shit anyway. So I'll be going over changes, big and small, relating to character motivations and the overarching plot of the Red War, while keeping the basic premise of the story intact, since I feel most of the problems stem from execution, not the overall foundation, though the first thing I'm going to talk about is an exception to that train of thought. 15 missions wasn't enough time for the game to get across things like character motivation, which, may I remind you, is kind of important in a game that relies so much on its cast of colourful characters. Destiny 2 either does this poorly, or in the case of Cade's reason for being on Nessus, not at all. I'd say about 20 or so missions would be a more reasonable length, allowing for more development in the aforementioned fields. Adding to that, with Curse of Osiris, Bungie integrated the 2 strikes, a garden world and tree of possibilities, into the storyline. No joke, I had the same idea while making RRC. Things just happen that way, I guess. What I would change, however, is the impact strikes have over normal story missions. They should be of wider scale, contain climactic set pieces that spice up the gameplay while also giving more depth to story details. I gave a great example in Rough Road behind us. Imagine a strike where you and 2 others act as a tank crew, a driver, mortar and machine gunner, pushing across a battlefield while avoiding airstrikes. This type of content needs to be the middle ground between raids and story missions, with the gameplay mechanics of the latter and story beats of the former. Giving strikes more attention does not mean I want to leave story missions in the sorry state they find them in. Give them some love too. Another example, you're in the EDZ overlooking the comms network when you notice a Fallen tampering with the beacons in an attempt to find the routes refugees are using to reach the farm. This leads into a sparrow chase through the forest a la Return of the Jedi. The reliance on unique set pieces and gameplay opportunities instead of normal run, scan, shoot end formula Destiny loves to use so much is because in my version of the story, you don't get your light back in Mission 3. Let's go into a little bit more detail. The archetype of an overpowered character has been around in media for ages. Superman, Bungie's own Master Chief, Saitama in One Punch for a more recent example. However, what most of these examples have that Guardians and Destiny don't is actual discernible and or memorable character traits. Sure, you could argue Master Chief isn't the best example I could give you, but Halo 4, no matter your opinion on what 343 has done for the franchise since they took over, has one of the most memorable and tear-jerking moments in the whole series. Halo 4 evolved the character of Master Chief. It showed weakness in someone we thought was indestructible. You, as the invincible main character of Destiny, do not have that luxury. Yeah, all the people around you like Osiris, Saint 14, Cade, Ikora, Saladin, Eris are at least somewhat interesting with some backlore to boot, but no, not you. You're the human manifestation of a safe space where opinions and character traits can't exist because it might offend someone. TLDL, Bungie has created a self-insert character that, instead of enveloping you in the story, hinders it. Removing the light would allow for such character dynamics to take center stage. You could even use the dialogue system from Titanfall 2 as framework to allow for some player choice. But if not, at least have our Guardian show the smallest of human emotions, a noble soul who just wants to help people and learns throughout the campaign it's not the light that makes you a Guardian, it's the actions you undertake that make you one. Yeah, it's contrived and somewhat overdone, but I'm sure if Bungie put the amount of effort they do into their backlore, they could make it work. For an overarching premise the whole plot can fall back on, a great fit would be what I just mentioned when talking about the player's Guardian. It's not the light that makes you a hero, it's the actions you undertake that do. You know, like how Bungie spun it in all the pre-release material. Just spin it differently for each character when needed. Finally, I'm just going to say, please lax on the cutscenes. It goes back to an old mantra, show don't tell. Kinda. Cutscenes like the one we got with Cade on Nessus can create funny and memorable moments, though I will also argue that having a mission instead of the cutscene on screen now would create a better climax than the one we got, by widening the scale of battle from you coming in last minute to save the day to a joint effort of all the forces of humanity with you being the one that pulls through and finishes the fight. With the major foundation out the way, time to go over some character changes starting with the villain Gaul. Instead of having him show up at the beginning and end of the story with cutscenes that somewhat mess up the passage of time during these events, like seriously, Failsafe implies the Red War was about a week long when talking to Cade. So you're telling me the speaker was in that BDSM pose for a week. Ghoul was talking to the false prophet and didn't sniff his bullshit for a week. Jesus Christ, this is dumb. Have him actively fuck with the player's progress, like, you know, every good video game villain ever. Example? You're helping refugees in the EDZ reach the farm, and Ghoul orders the Red Legion to blow up a mountain, causing a rock slide into the valley passage below, making it so refugees have to go through the dark forest. Something simple like that would increase Ghoul's impact tenfold. Not only has he taken the light and these people's homes, but now he's forcing them to contest with the Fallen that wait in ambush deep within the dark forest. To go with this new version of Ghoul, get rid of the Almighty. I stated in RRC I found it to be artificial tension for the climax, since Ghoul, minus the opening, has spent the whole game talking the speaker to death. With him taking a more active role, the super weapon is null and void. End of story. The Vanguard are next, and to be honest, when it comes to the changes, all I can say for Zavala and Ikora is more detail. Have Zavala's will be completely broken due to both the invasion and Hive killing defenseless Guardians on Titan. A man who feels guilty for allowing such atrocities to happen, and your time on Titan is spent not just helping out the Resistance, but building back Zavala's faith. Now Cade, for some reason in the game itself, doesn't have a reason to be on Nessus minus the teleporter. Come to think of it, Zavala doesn't have a reason. Oh, for goodness. Fuck it. Make it a quest of self-discovery. With the loss of his powers, Cade has been given time to reflect on who he was before the collapse. Like most Exos, he can remember a few things here and there about his past. It's said in Grimoire that Cade has a journal on his person with the name Ace written inside. For people who are up to date on the lore, you'll know Ace was Cade's son, who's been long dead since the collapse. However, he doesn't know this because of his fractured memory, and up to this point he hasn't gave it much thought, plus he hasn't been allowed to leave the tower since he became Hunter Vanguard. The Red War gave him an out, so he started his search on Nessus for a few reasons. One, being Vex control planets are a direct feed into their hive mind, which contains the biggest cache of information from across time, because you know, the Vex have been around since before humanity. The game's got that across flawlessly. 2, for a more exact reason why Cade specifically chose Nessus, is more simple. You would think a centaur on the edge of the solar system would gain less attention from the Red Legion than strongholds like Venus, Mercury, and Io. Of course, the Legion end up having interests on Nessus anyway, but I think it still works out. Ikora's reasoning and conflict on Io will stay the same. However, we'll tie Cade's quest in slightly since the Pyramidion would make sense as a climax of his story, with Ikora and Asher stepping in to save us from a trap the Red Legion set to drain our light. Take that as foreshadowing. Things will move along as usual, but now with no Almighty, the data Ikora receives can either be A, an attack on the farm and Titan by Ghoul, or B, tie it into Gods of Mars. Both can work. Finally, let's go over some more general things I'd add to the story in the form of mission concepts to either give the story more detail or because I feel like it. Begin the campaign with players partaking in the parade celebrating yours and others' victories depending on the context from the last game, letting them see the sea in its peak of prosperity. An age of triumph, if you will. Time skip 6 months and the events of Homecoming begin to unfold, but instead of going straight after Ghoul, we descend into the sea to help in the evacuation effort with Lord Shaxx. After some time, you're picked up by Amanda Holiday and taken aboard Ghoul's ship. Now with actual build-up, the juxtaposition when Ghoul takes your light is much more impactful. You are able to fight back, but now you've been reduced to nothing and Ghoul rids you with ease. Move on to Exodus, you know, the best mission in the entire game, and the players are taken to the farm by Hawthorne. There, you find Tyra Khan, who informs you the Red Legion also launched an attack on the Iron Temple, with Lord Saladin and Shiro staying behind to protect its archives. So you bolt for the temple to assist and enter its archives, learning about powers thought once lost. The Sentinel, Arcstrider, and Dawnblade. Ghost chimes in about the vision from Exodus, so you head for the Dark Forest looking for answers, but now instead of getting your powers back, you gain another vision hinting at the location of the missing Vanguard. The next 3 missions in the strike follow you in the EDZ, setting up beacon networks and helping refugees reach the farm while having to contend with the Fallen and Red Legion. Titan also consists of 3 missions in the strike while helping the Resistance arm their forces and Zavala's doubt. Nessus has you help Cade unravel his past while also obtaining the Vex teleporter for the attack on the city over 4 missions and the inverted Spire strike. Cade's journey leads into Io, where you're saved by Ikora and Asher from a Legion light trap. You then proceed to dismantle Ghoul's operations on the moon in around 3 missions or so. Moving on to Climax, the Vanguard decide removing Ghoul's chain of command should be first on the list, so beginning with the Arms Dealer strike, we continue with the missions Payback, Unbroken, and Larceny, setting the stage for the taking back of the city. Of course, no Almighty, so mission 29 is the actual battle for the city, where one by one the Vanguard, Hawthorne, Lord Shaxx, and Saladin get separated, leaving you as the last to push ahead, using the teleporter to get aboard Ghoul's ship, where like before he's conquered the light. However, light begins begins to erupt from the Traveler, and with it, your powers begin to re-emerge. As the light flows through you, it causes Ghoul to also gain strength, but finally, after a long, grueling battle, you come out victorious as the real champion of the light. You have overcome every test the war has thrown at you, never giving up in the face of adversity. You saved so many in your crusade against the Red Legion, reinstilling hope in the people who lost so much once before in the collapse, and now in this Red War. And with that, you have become legend. And that was my Destiny 2 story concept. And this time around will actually be hyped for Destiny 3.